Masechta Sanhedrin that Pei Vav Amar Aleph. We're starting from the sixth line from the top. Hagrein B'nai. In the Mishnah we'd learn somebody kidnaps his son. Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Berekah, says that he's chayiv. Chacham say he's pater. In fact, you want to buy time there? What's the reason of the Chacham that pater, one who steals, who kidnaps his son? Amabayit Amakabis says in the pasuk, "V'negei Gani of Nefesh Ki Yimatzeh." Ki Yimatzeh means that it will be found. If a man shall be found, and then he kidnaps him. So since it says it's excluding something that's there ready. And since Benai is there, therefore he's going to be pater. Only when the Torah says that it says, if a man shall be found lying with a woman married to a husband, it says then they should both die. Achinami, are we going to dash ki yimatzeh prat l'matzeh? Ki yimatzeh means only when it's found, but excluding something that's there already. Ki gan shabbeis plaini. For instance, that in a place where many mishpachos live together, many husbands and wives they live together, the shchich gabayo, where the men and women, different men and different women of different marriages live together. But of course, they didn't commit adultery. They lived in the same house together. Are you going to say that if the men committed with adultery with married women in that same house where they were all found, they're going to be part because it's matzah? Because the pasuk says ki matzah, which means that only if it was found, but not something that's there already. Something that's there already, you can say is pater. Amalei. So Abai answered, "Anom v'nimtza b'yadei kamina." He says, "I'm learning it out from v'nimtza b'yadei, or if it is found in his possession." That means, and the pasuk is talking about he should put to death. Over there is referring that word v'nimtza b'yadei is extra, or if it will be found in his possession. Of course, that's what we're talking about. So what do we need? The extra words, and obviously he's come to teach us that something it's excluding lematzui over here by a kidnapping. If it was there in the house already, such a kidnapping is going to be pater. Amar Rava. Rava said, Hilka, since we're dashing from the extra words v'nimtza b'yadei prat lematzei, to exclude something that's there already. Hani miki the dardaki umasnu rabbanan. These cases, those that teach children, and those who say mishnayos to Talmidei Chachamim, to Torah scholars. So in those cases, it's as if they are found in his possession. So uptini, in such a case, if he kidnaps one of the children that he's teaching, he's going to be pater. The malamim are going to be pater mitzvah if he kidnapped one of those children. The following day, we learned in the Mishnah, if he kidnapped evet that's half ben chayrin, half free, Rabbi Yehuda says in Chacham says pater. Not Hassam. We learned in the Mishnah Baba Kama somebody who's chayv be'avet knani, somebody who hurts avet knani of somebody that belongs to somebody else. He's chayiv in all five things. Nezek tzadi b'shem su beishes. Rabbi Yehuda me'ela avad beishes. Rabbi Yehuda says the Torah didn't reward beishes for evet. In fact, you went at my time, Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda? Amakar, because the pasuk says when they gave tashum al beishes, when two men will fight, ish ve'ach a man to his brother, somebody who has brotherhood is the Torah merits him for beishes. Excluding evet, where he's not considered brotherhood. The Torah didn't merit him, reward him with beishes. Rabbanan that say that he's chayv for beishes, achifu b'mitzvahs. He's considered as a brother in mitzvahs, just because he's chayv in mitzvahs like a woman, and therefore he's included in the pasuk not to ish be achiv. That he's included in the pasuk if a man will fight with his brother. And over here, but again to Geneva, that the pasuk says achva. It says ki matzeh ish goynev Nefesh me echav. It says lashon achva brotherhood. B'nei Yisrael heichi darish. How does Rabbi Yehuda? How does Rabbi Yehuda dash? And that Sava, he holds meyachav avodim. Meyachav brotherhood comes to exclude avodim. That if somebody kidnaps avodim, is not going to be chayv misa. B'nei Yisrael is l'miyutim yishachatzi avad v'chatz ben chayim. B'nei Yisrael is coming to exclude one who's half ben chayim, but he's half avad. So he's not going to be chayv misa for kidnapping. Mibnei Yisrael, the mem of Bnei Yisrael, so of Bnei, Mibnei, Kulimiyut, Misha Chatzah Chatzah Ben Chayim, teaches again the same miyut, to exclude somebody who's half Evid, half Ben Chayim, that there will be, that he's not going to be Chayim Misa. Says, you want to have a miyut, ach miyut. It's an exclusion after exclusion. Two miyutim telling you the same thing. Bnei Yisrael, Mibnei, and the mem. And we know the klal is, ain't miyut, ach miyut, el rabbis. When you have a miyut, if there's another miyut, it only comes to include. So therefore, he's coming to include that if somebody kidnaps a chetzi ben chayim, he's going to be chayiv for kidnapping him. He's going to be chayiv misa. Rabbanim say from echav, he doesn't exclude avodim because however it is the ha'achifu mitzvah is Kibnei Yisrael, he says the Hachav mitzvahs because he's considered as a brother mitzvah because he's chayim in the mitzvahs that a woman is mechuyev in. So he is considered as a brother. Bnei Yisrael and Bnei Yisrael, these two miyutim, the words of Bnei Yisrael and the mem of Bnei Yisrael. Chad l'miyut, one is coming to exclude evet. That if somebody kidnaps a evet, he's not going to be chayim misa. Chad l'miyut, misha chatzi evet, chatz ben chayim. So since they're coming to teach us different miyutim, so it's not considered as a miyut acha miyut. And the word me'achav didn't teach us anything because it is brotherhood. Just the pasuk b'nei Yisrael comes to exclude the avodim, and me b'nei Yisrael is coming to exclude chatzi v'chatz ben chayim, that you're not going to be chayiv misa for kidnapping half a habit, half a ben chayim. Asar l'gayt of nafs midnight. Where do we see there's a law for kidnapping? From this that it says you shouldn't sell like the sale of a evet. And the two are not arguing. Not arguing. I'm sorry. He's enumerating the lav that we have on Geneva. Rabbi is counting, is enumerating the lav that's on the mechira, on the sale part. This that says when it says if it's talking about kidnapping. So the Gemara wants not to. How do you're saying it's referring to kidnapping, or perhaps it's referring to stealing money? So Gemara Amarta, you said, go and learn out from the 30 meters that the Torah is gedashin by that, which is enumerated by Rabbi Yishmael, in the dashes, before davening you say it. And the 12th one is that if something is written in the Torah and you don't know what it's talking about, you see what the topic of that parsha is. And what is the topic of the pasuk they're talking about? Nefashis. It's talking about nefashis. If you look in the pasuk, it says you shouldn't kill, you shouldn't commit adultery. So you're talking about nefashis. I've come nefashis. So when it says after it says obviously you're talking about kidnapping. Tanya Yidipulent in another brayso. This that it says in the pasuk like Tignevu, beginning of Mammon Akosmadavid, the pasuk is talking about by stealing money. So the Gemara asks, the brayso brings down Ataima beginning of money. You're saying it's referring to stealing money, or perhaps it's talking about kidnapping. So the Gemara says, go and learn out from the 30 meters that the Torah is gedashin by them. And amongst them, the 12th one is you learn something from the topic. But what is that pasha referring to? B'mami. It's talking about mammon. It says leisignevu, leisichachashu, leisishakru, leisashik, leisachav, leisigzel. There you're talking about money issues. Avkan. So too, when it says in that pasuk leisignevu, but mammon is referring to stealing money. Itma, we had learned one group of Eidim testified on the kidnapping, and another group testified on the selling. Shehuzmu, that they were Muslim to other Eidim. They came and said, how can you testify that this person kidnapped and sold him, if that day that you're testifying about the kidnapping, about the sale, you were with us elsewhere? Chizkiah says, we don't kill the one that were Muslim. Avichon says they do get killed within Kasha Zaman. So the Gemara explains the machlekes. Chizkiah the Amma, Chizkiah, that he said his words like Rabbi Akiva the Amma. He says from this that the pasuk says Al Pi Shnei Eidim Yakum Dava V'Lei Chatzi Dava. We learn out that Eid is not considered Eid. It's only if they testified on a complete matter. And over here, each one is only testifying on a half a matter. You have Eidus of Geneva without the Mechira. The Eidus of Geneva without Mechira cannot be Mechayiv. It's only if there was Sai Geneva and Sai Mechira. And the Eidus Mechira without the Eidus of Geneva cannot be Mechayiv, this person who's being testified against Misa, because a pair of Eidim cannot taina. Meaning the Eidim that testified that he stole cannot taina that this Eved was sold. So therefore the Eidus is not accepted to be Mechayv and Mesa. And Mamela, if they were Muslim, he doesn't get killed. There's no Kasha Zamam. Only Eidim that through their Eidus they're able to be Mechayv, the person who they're accusing Misa, only then these Eidim could be Muslim. But in such a case where you have two separate Eidim testifying on a half a thing, they cannot be Muslim, so therefore the Eidus are unacceptable. Rabbi Yechon say like the Rabbanon, they hold even if you have Eidus testifying on one half, and the second Eidus on another half, and in combination in combination of the two groups of Eidim could be Mechayivim. So since in their Eidus there's enough to be Mechayiv the person, the one that they're accusing Misa. So when they're Muslim, they're going to be Chayiv Misa because of Asisim like Kasha Zama. But Chizkiah is made by the second pair of Eidim that they testified that he did it a second time, that he's going to be Chayiv Misa. Shehuzamu Shanaragin, because when they were Muslim, the second pair of Eidim, they were going to be Mechayiv, the Ben Seir Meira Misa. And we don't say since he wasn't Chayiv Misa without the other Eidim, that the first Eidim that testified, so then the second Eidim is a Chatzi Dava. We don't say that. We take Sheikh and Leima because we could say the Shenim is a separate Eidus. The Shenim could say we came lahalakei sebanu. We only came to be Mechayiv and Malchus, not Misa. We testified only, and it's a complete Eidus because the complete Eidus is that they were going to be Mechayiv and Malchus, and if they were Muslim, they get Malchus. They didn't know that he's going to do again another. He's going to commit again the Isa of being a Ben Seir Meira. They didn't know there's going to be a second time, so they said we only came to be Mechayiv and Malchus. Even though they came and they were Muslim after the second Eidim came, you can't be Mechayiv the first Eidim Misa, because the first Eidim say we only came to testify on Malchus. These second Eidim, they did the whole Misa. They did it on their own. We came from Malchus, they came from Misa. It's two complete Eidus, and it's two separate Eidus. So Masker Papa is so. The Eidim, so when the Eidim come and testify by the kidnapping, not by Ben Seir Meira, you have two Eidim, Eidim Geneva and Eidim Mechira. Eidim Mechira, after the Eidim testified that the kidnapper sold this person, so we should say he should be that the Eidim Mechira should be Chayiv. They should be Musa. If they're Muslim, they should be Chayiv Misa. Like let us say that's two separate complete Eidos. When the Eidah Gneva came, they could say, we came only to be Mechai and Malchus, not Misa. It's just like by Ben Sanhedrin, it's considered as two separate complete Eidos. So too here, by when the Eidah Mechira come and testify, they should be Chai Misa if they're Muzam, and the Eidah Gneva is a complete separate Eidos because they could say, we only came to be Mechai and Malchus. And if you're going to say Chizkiah holds that one who testified, meaning the Edom who testified about this person that he kidnapped, but didn't testify that he sold, he doesn't get Malchus mitzad because you're going to say it's a lav shenit lasaros Mrs. Bastin, and we're soon going to explain that. And since the lav, I'll say it now. Since the whole lav is really a given for somebody who reaches to Mrs. Bastin, so and even though you didn't reach it, you only reached the lay sigma. You're not going to say this Malchus because the whole warning was based on Misa. And the klal is, if the warning was based on the Misa that it'll reach the Misa, you don't give him Malchus. So if you're going to want to say that Chizkiah holds that there's no separate Eidos for Malchus in itself, when the Eidah Gneva testified that there's Malchus, says, you know, that's not true. We learned by Eidah Gneva that testified about kidnapping, and they were Muslim. Chizkiah, there's a machlekes of Chizkiah Rabbi Yochanan. Chadam Aleikim, one says he gets Malchus just for the Eidah Gneva who are Muslim itself. Chadam Ein Leikim, one says he doesn't get Malchus. And we said that this time the Chizkiah Rabbi Aleikim, Chizkiah is the Befedish, the one that says he does get Malchus. But the other Chizkiah, from this that Chizkiah said, Ein Narogin, that they cannot get killed. Meaning, even if the Eidim Mechira came afterwards, after the Eidah Gneva, and then they were Muslim, the Eidah Gneva they do not get killed because it's only Chatzi Dava. He considers it as Chatzi Dava. The Rabbi Yochanan, because if Rabbi Yochanan is the one that says he gets Malchus, Kivin the Amen Haragin, since he said that if the Eidim testified on the Gneva, and then other Edom came and testified on the Mechira, and he was now being sentenced to death because of the tziruf, the combination of both the groups of Eidos, and they were Muslim. That both he holds, Rabbi Yochanan holds that side Eidim Gneva, side Eidim Mechira get killed. Havalei, so this is considered a lav of Loisana Berecha Itchaka, that even when they testify falsely on the Gneva, lav shenit lasas Mrs. Bastin. We call lav shenit lasas Mrs. Bastin ain't like love. So obviously Chizkiah is the one that says he does get Malchus because according to Rabbi Yochanan, you cannot say that Eidah Gneva will get Malchus, because according to Rabbi Yochanan, if after the Eidah Gneva came the Eidah Mechira, and then they were Muzam, the Eidah Gneva will also get Misa, Kasha Zamam. Now, so you cannot say that the Eidah Gneva is on its own, would get Malchus, because it's a lav, Shenit Lasas, since it can reach to Misa. So there was only a warning for Mrs. Bastin, not for Malchus. So if the Eidah Gneva testified on Malchus, they're not going to get Malchus, because this of the klal that if the warning is a warning that leads to Misa, like over here, once the Eidah Mechira comes and together they were Muslim, the Eidah Gneva is going to be Chai Misa. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if there's no such a thing as Malchus for the Eidah Gneva, because the Asara reaches to a level, the warning reaches to a level of Misa, if they were both Muslim after the Eidah Mechira, and if the Eidah Mechira had testified after the Eidah Gneva, and they were Muslim, the Eidah Gneva are going to be Chai Misa. But according to Chizkiah, where he says they're not going to be Chai Misa, so obviously the Ashara is not reaching to Misa for the Eid Geneva because it's Chatzi Dava. And for Chatzi Dava you cannot be Chayiv Misa. So it wasn't a warning towards Misa. It was never a warning by the Eid Geneva. If the Eid Geneva was a separate group than the Eid Mechira, they would never reach the Azhar of Misa. So therefore, Chizkiah has to be the one that says that he's going to be Chayiv Malchus. Says the Gemara, let us consider it now as a complete separate Eidus. Eid Geneva is one complete Eidus for Malchus, and say Eid Mechira should be a separate complete Eidus according to Chizkiah that you should be Chayiv Misa. Says the Gemara, after a Papa had proved that according to Chizkiah, Eid Geneva Benefesh that's Muslim, he does get Malchus. So he says, lucky if the Nidan doesn't get Malchus when they testify that he kidnapped and he was a Muslim, Inu the Edom lucky. How could we give Malchus to the Edom? It's impossible to give Malchus Makasha Zamam if the Edom wouldn't be Mechayiv the Malchus. Only for sure you have to say that according to Chizkiah, that the Eid Geneva could say we came from Malchus, because they say they came from Malchus, it's considered as a Dava Shalom, and since it's a Dava Shalom, so then when the Eid Mechira testified that he sold this nefesh that he kidnapped, that Eid Mechira is a separate, complete Eidus, and according to Chizkiah, he should be Chayiv Misa. Allah, my Papa said, Papa says, really, by Eid Mechira, everybody's in agreement that if Edom came after the Geneva, and another pair of Edom came and testified that he sold the kidnapped person, everybody agrees that the Eid Mechira will be Chayiv Misa. It will be Kashazama. That the Edom, if they were Muslim, they're going to be Chayiv Misa. Keep pligi. Where are they arguing? But they only been the gate of the Eid Geneva that were Muslim. Chizkiah Amar ain't haragin. Chizkiah says the Eid Geneva do not get killed because a Geneva lechuda kaima. He says the Geneva stands on its own, meaning it's a Avera on its own that the Torah was Mechayiv Malchus. It's not a chilik of the Avera upon which you Chayiv Misa. Mechira lechuda kaima. And the Mechira, the group of Eidos that testified in Mechira, is its own complete Eidos. It's Aveda B'fnei Atzma, upon which the Torah was Mechayiv Misa. And the Geneva is only a Chana that the Torah required in order that it should be Chayiv Misa ala Mechira. So the first ones that came to be for the Geneva, the first group that came testified in Geneva, will say that's only for Malchus. And the second one that came to testify on the Mechira, that's its own testimony upon which if they were Muslim, they're going to be Chayiv Misa. Rabbi Yochanan says the Eid Geneva are also Chayiv Misa if they were Muslim after the Eid Mechira came. Naragim ki Geneva is halt in the Mechira because Rabbi Yochanan holds the Geneva is part of the Mechira. It's the beginning of the Mechira. It's the beginning of the sale. Papa continues. Rabbi Yochanan agrees when it comes to the first Eidos of a Ben Sera Meir that was Muslim. They don't get killed. They could say befedish that they came only to testify for the Malchus, different than kidnapping, where the Torah doesn't write Malchus befedish and Misa for the second Eidos. There, Rabbi Yochanan holds that he's not going to get Malchus by kidnapping because it's a lav that reaches Mises Bezdin. Because the Eidos of Geneva is a lav that really reaches Mises Bezdin because once the Eid Mechira come and then they were Muslim, so the Eid Geneva will be Chayiv Mises Bezdin. So therefore there's no Malchus, any lav that reaches the level of Mises Bezdin, there's no Malchus for it. But Ben Seder Meir surely will get Malchus after the first testimony because that's what the Torah says. And the Torah says after the second time that he does over the same Aveda, the Ben Seder Meir, then he's Chayiv. then he's going to be Chai Misa, like it says, V'Yisroi say. There has to be a warning by the second time. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan says that the first ones could say, first Edom that testified by Ben Sarah will get Malchus. The second Edom is only the ones that will be Chai Misa. So you see, it's two completely separate. There's Lekuliyama when it comes to Ben Sarah because the Torah does separate the first Edom from the second Edom. Because between the first Edom, the first offense that he did as a Ben Sarah the Torah says there's Malchus, and then it says V'Yisroi to bring him up to the next level that it should be Chai Misa. That's the second Eidos that testifies, and the second offense that's a completely second Eidos, and that will be for Misa. But the first one is finished for Malchus versus by kidnapping. The Torah doesn't separate the Eidos. And therefore the Eid Geneva, and then comes Eid Mechira, and then the one Muslim, even there, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he'll say that the Eid Geneva is also going to be Chayiv Misa. So since it's a law that reaches the Misa's Basnin, it's not considered as separate. Abaya said, Akol Meidim, Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan both agree that there's Eidim by Ben Sarah Meir, that if they're Muzam, they're not going to be killed. Akol Meidim, and then there's another case when there are Eidim that testify in Ben Sarah Meir that if they were Muslim, that they do get killed. Umachlekes, and there's no Machlekes, but Ben Sarah Meir. So what are the cases? Akol Meidim is Ben Sarah Meir, by the money Shainim, Shaineragim. Everybody agrees by Sarah Meir, by the first offense, the first Eidim that come to testify about the first offense, that he doesn't get killed. Because the first Eidim who came to testify about the first offense could say, we came only lahalkans, we came only to be mechayim and malchus. Therefore they don't get killed. But everybody agrees by Ben Sarah Meir, by the second offense, the second this group of Eidos that are testifying the second offense. Since the first Eidim testified, and they could testify, they only came to be Mechayv and the Malchus, because that was on the first offense. Mahani and these second Eidim are coming now to testify in the second offense. Kulei Davakav delay. So they did a Davashalim Benegay Chiyuv Misa, because they're only coming to be Mechayv and Misa, the second offense. Machlekes by Ben Sarah Meira, and the Machlekes by Ben Sarah Meira is talking about Shnaim and Mefenenu Ganav. The Eidos was split. Two Eidim say, in front of us, the son stole from the father money in order to buy meat and wine. Shnaim, and a different pair of Eidim say Mefenenu Achal. In front of us, he ate the meat and another Yeshua's. So since the Eidos was split, so according to Chizkiah, if they were Muslim, they don't get killed, because it was like Rabbi Akiva. He parcels the Eidos because it's Chatzi Dava, and you have to testify in a whole matter. And since it's a parcel of Eidos, because it says Dava v'lo Chatzi Dava, so therefore they cannot be Muslim, and therefore they're not therefore they're not acceptable Eidos, and there's no Kasha Zama. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, he holds like the Chachamim, who are Machshe Chatzi Dava. So Ben Sarah, that's Chayiv Misa, Al Pi Eidim, if they weren't, even if they weren't Muslim, their Eidos would be accepted. Therefore, if they were Muslim, they're going to get killed. Avasi said, Eidim Echira Ben Nefesh, Eidim Echira that testified about the sale, they didn't, Shehuzmo, and they were Muslim, Ein Erogim, they don't get killed. He can say, the slave that was sold, it was my own slave. They can't prove that it was stolen. And he sold a stolen slave. Like which, this sugya, this sugya of Ravasi could go, like whom does he follow? Rabbi Akiva, like Rabbi Akiva, the Amma, that he says, it says, Al Pishnai made him Yokim Dava, V'lei Chatzi Dava. And therefore, since the Eidim Echira are only testifying about half, it's not Eidos, because you have to have also the Eidei Geneva, and you only have Eidim Echira. Abaya, so Abaya said, it comes out from your words, the Ikra Abanan, if it follows the Abanan, who Machshe, even Chatzi Dava, that he would get killed. He says, look, He's saying, I could have said it's my own slave that I sold. You have no proof. Says, you could even say it's a Rabbanan. And it's talking about that the Eid Geneva did not come. And the Eid Mechira cannot be Mechayiv Misa, even according to the Chachamim, who are Machshir Eidish Chatzidava, like we said before, because they could say, he could say, I didn't sell a kidnapped slave, I sold my own slave. If that's what he could say, if so, Ravasi is talking about that the word no Eid Geneva. Why did Ravasi have to say it? It's self-understood that he could say he didn't sell a stolen slave. It's talking about that the Eid Geneva came at the end, and after the Eid Mechira had testified, and then they were Mechayiv this person Misa based on the Eidus of the Mechira. Nevertheless, the Eid Mechira will not get Misa if they were Muzam, because at the time when they testified, there was no Eidim on the Geneva. So he was unable to get killed just based on the Eidim Mechira. So they could say, we didn't know that the Eidim Geneva were going to come, so why should we be Chai Misa? So still, what's the Chiddush? Of course, they're right. When they testified, there was no Eidim Geneva, so how would they have known that the Eidim Geneva would come? They didn't intend to kill him. It's talking about the din of Avasi in a case where both groups of Eidim were there and they made gestures to each other. I would have thought the gesture that they made between each other is a gesture, and they knew about it, so we should say that the Eidim Mechira did know about the Eidim Geneva. That's why Ravasi is coming to teach us. Just a gesture doesn't mean that they knew about the Eidim Geneva. It's that the Eidim Mechira knew about the Eidim Geneva, and therefore they're going to be pater.